Compromise is a great way to create a bland, pleasant, conflict-free partnership. But tell me your view of why compromise is such awful advice.
You know, in modern marriage and in modern life, really, there are so many resources where we can get really creative with solutions. I mean, if you think about any type of situation, scenario, decision that a couple needs to make together, like how to school your children, how to discipline, where to move, where to eat dinner, there are so many options.
Welcome, Monica. I am so excited you're here. And actually, for any of you who've been with me for well over 200 episodes now, you've probably heard today's guest before, Monica Tanner. She was actually one of my first. We are both relationship coaches. In anticipation of this interview, I've really been thinking, because my focus almost exclusively is to give inspiration, good advice, valuable, practical information, inspirational stories. Like, what else would I be doing on the Intimate Marriage podcast? However, there is a great deal of value in also pointing out, calling forth bad marriage advice, and making sure that you who've chosen to listen to the Intimate Marriage podcast recognize bad advice when it crosses your path. Now, you may recognize it's bad because you tried it and it didn't work, but if you're newer to trying things, let's cut through all that painful, unnecessary experimentation, research, and lack of development, because Monica Tanner is here to give her input. So first of all, a really warm welcome to you.
Thank you so much, Alexandra. It's so fun to be here with you again.
Yeah, it's been many times. So why don't you just go ahead and share about your book and the context for your book?
Yeah, so this is so fun because we're both just very recently married off our first children. My oldest son just got married and he's very young. He's 21. His bride is just barely 21. He said, I'm going to marry your mom. And I was like, okay. And so my head just filled with all this advice, like my 23 years of marriage and all the couples I've worked with and all of the roadblocks I've seen couples come up against. And so I just sat down to kind of write this note that turned into a book. And so this book is dedicated to my son and his new bride. I polled my audience and said, what's the worst marriage advice you've ever gotten? And I thought about all of the bad marriage advice that I ascribed to early in our marriage that just made things kind of miserable for us. And then just thought about my clients who are kind of stumped by some of these beliefs or these bad pieces of advice that they just, kind of keep them stuck and miserable. And so it's 15 chapters of just these cliche, well-meaning pieces of advice that just get thrown out there and are actually so detrimental.
This just feels like a breath of fresh air, because when someone is newly married, or actually married for 20 years and no longer the fantasy you had in your mind, it's just hard to know where to turn. And some of the most accessible advice, you and I, as women who've been married a while and as experienced relationship coaches, so know that so much of it is just horrible. So do you have categories for the horrible advice? The 15 different bad advice cliches, like do you group them at all?
They're not really grouped and they're not in any special order. It's meant to keep on your nightstand to just kind of a reference of I hope that it makes you smile. I hope that it makes you nod your head. I hope that people who have been married or that are newly married will, it'll be a good reference for them. People who've been married for a long time, they'll go, oh my gosh, yes, I totally remember somebody saying that to us. And eventually we just had to throw it out because it wasn't good advice. I hope it'll just be a fun read for people.
Okay, will you give us some of the bad advice so we can enjoy how ridiculous it is, even though at first it seems true?
Logical, yeah. seems romantic and logical and all the things. So the first one, and this is the one that ranked the highest when I polled my audience, most people said this one, and it's the happy wife, happy life. I see it all the time. I see little reels like you've got an interviewer and he's out in the wild and he finds these older couples and he's like, what's your best advice for staying happily married? And the guy will always like look over at the wife and be like, she's the boss. We keep her happy. She makes the rules. She wears the pants, right? Like that's super cliche. Like if one member of the partnership is happy, then it doesn't matter how the other one feels. Like we just want to revolve around this one partner's happiness.
As part of my daughter's marriage a few weeks ago, there was a celebratory dinner for every night the following week. And at one of them, everyone present gave some marital advice, and it was done anonymously. But as it turned out, there was a father who's been married, and then his father was there as well. And they both gave the same advice. So the grandfather essentially said, nod and say yes. And then his son, his advice was just say yes, which those are variations on happy wife, happy life. Like all you have to do is keep your wife happy. And I just found it such a kind of poignant and sad moment because you could see this going through the generations. It was all given anonymously. No one knew what anyone else was giving, but the person who read them out loud knew that it had come. And I could just imagine that's exactly what the next generation will say and the generation after that. So I really love that you're identifying this bad advice for your son and his wife and anyone else who wants to read the book. But let's get into it. What is the problem with nod and say yes, with she's the boss, with happy wife, happy life?
Well, I think you can take it the two directions I think that are most poignant are the first one is that's a lot of responsibility for the wife. Like they're the emotional center of the family. Like if they're not happy, then something's not going well, or they feel like they have to be happy all the time, or, they're sending the wrong message by not being happy, or, so that in and of itself is just a problem where the whole responsibility of whether or not things are going well or not is whether or not the wife is happy. But it also has the connotation of like the woman being naggy and, unsatisfied. And like the husband just has to bend over backwards and give up the things that are important to him. And he just nods and says yes. And then that's how you keep the peace in the family. And eventually that just causes a lot of resentment and eventually withdrawal because the husband's like, well, there's nothing for me here. I just, my life revolves around keeping her happy. And that's just not good messaging. I prefer to say happy spouse, happy house.
Meaning it's important for both spouses to be happy.
Absolutely. There needs to be room in the relationship for both people to get what they want, to feel heard and seen and cared for. So, yeah, like basing your whole marriage, not only that, but it creates a lot of lazy communication. There's a through line for all of this bad marriage advice, and that is that it creates lazy communication. So, happy wife, happy life is like, as long as the wife's happy, I don't have to give my opinion. We don't have to have hard conversations. I just stuff down my opinions and feelings and we just go with whatever you want. Like, that's not a recipe for happy, thriving, intimate relationships, right?
Absolutely. I want to add kind of another dimension to the problem with happy wife, happy life, which is building on what you've said, where it puts all the responsibility on the woman and how she's feeling to determine everything about the partnership. And it really downplays his own experience and essentially creates a parent-child dynamic where how she feels, what she thinks of him, those are really the determining things. And any particular consensual kink scene aside, parent-child dynamics just kill the erotic vitality in a relationship. Like if I skip all of the steps in between, although they've kind of been named in what you've said and what I'm saying, happy wife, happy life, it works in the short term because it's nice when she's happy. But over the long term, it is a passion killer. It is like putting water on the erotic energy, because what any mature woman wants in a heteronormative marriage is for the man to have purpose and personality and so much more definition than whatever's going to suit her. I have a lot of couples where they're in a challenging phase, and it basically has begun with her growth and development and empowerment and enjoying herself as an accomplished woman, and wanting to feel, who's this man? What does he want? What makes him happy? What would he enjoy? If everything is just referencing her and he's finding his validation in her happiness, I can't say enough, with emotionally healthy, accomplished, ambitious couples, how that is just a recipe to lose sexual intimacy. Even though the advice that's given you'd think would be the opposite, because if she's happy, she's going to make you happy, if you know what I mean. But that is completely not how that works over time. Okay, let's move on to another one. These are this one is so rich.
They're all so good. But I love talking about this one because whenever I walk up to an older couple that I know is happy, they've been married for a long time, so you think that they have really good advice, I always get this one. You have to learn to compromise. And I know that you're going to love talking about this one because we hate that word. I don't remember how we met either, but I remember originally bonding with you so hard over this idea of uncompromising intimacy.
Yeah, because from my point of view, compromise is a great way to create a bland, pleasant, conflict-free partnership. Again, without erotic vitality. There's so much about this, but tell me your view of why compromise is such awful advice.
Well, I hate the word compromise because to me, it's like lose-lose. It's like we're going to compromise. I give a little, you give a little. Neither of us really get what we want. And like, how is that fun? Like, in modern marriage and in modern life, really, there are so many resources where we can get really creative with solutions. I mean, if you think about any type of situation, scenario, decision that a couple needs to make together, like how to school your children, how to discipline, where to move, where to eat dinner. There are so many options with where we live. So there is no reason that anyone should ever have to compromise. I call it collaborating. So the word that I like to use is collaborating. But in order to do this, you have to do a few things. One, you have to remember love. You have to remember who you're talking to is the person that you love and that you live with. And you have to remember that the reason why you're talking to them is to make things better for both of you. So now once you've put yourself in that state, you can recognize like this is a really important step and most people skip this. It's to get really curious about yourself and why whatever your stance or position is important to you. So let's take the example of how to school our children. Maybe you have a wife who wants to send her kids to a really expensive, well-known private school. And you have a husband who's like, no, let's homeschool them, right? And now both of them have differing positions. And instead of being like, oh, this sucks because we have different ideas of how to do this, why not think of it as this rich experience where now you have two opinions, two perspectives, two experiences, two preferences to draw from. Now, the wife needs to get really curious about what is it about this private school education that appeals to me? Why do I think it would be great for the children? And then once she's gotten curious about that, she needs to get curious about her husband. What is it about homeschooling that seems to you that would be really great about the kids? Now you go for the kids, you go one step further and you go, what is it about your solution of homeschooling that makes me nervous or that it does not seem like the best solution? So once you have all of that information, once you've been able to talk about that in a way where both partners feel really heard and seen and understood and everything's out there on the table, Now you can get really creative. There's no reason why you should have to compromise on that. You can collaborate and come up with a solution that's better than either partner could have ever come up with on their own. Maybe you take core curriculum from the private school and you do some homeschooling on your own. Maybe you create like a co-op where you've got really educated parents that are teaching the different curriculum. Maybe you send them to a public school for sports. Maybe you find some sort of cooperative or where it has elements of both. There's so many educational options. You've got online schooling, you've got private, public, charter, homeschooling. There's millions of options, and you should be able to come up with something collaboratively that is for both partners. And then here's the final step.
Are you enjoying this conversation? Do you want more instruction in how to improve communication, enhance the emotional intimacy you have with your spouse? If that is you, I have created the Aligned and Hot Marriage program for you. So if you're ready to take action, go to alignedhotmarriage.com and be ready to enjoy yourselves.
Whatever you come up with isn't final. So it's not like this decision is the last decision you'll ever make. Try your collaborative solution for a year and see how that goes. And then you can make changes and adjust to it. Maybe it's working great for one child and another child is not. So you come up with different solutions for each of your kids. There's so many ways to solve this problem. We don't have to compromise anymore. There's no reason to do that.
I love hearing you talk about this because you really focus on particular elements that really are often missed, because I think it's easy to appreciate how important it is to become curious about your partner. And my experience is that the more curious one becomes about one's partner, it's just a natural consequence to become curious about oneself. But you really start with being curious about one's own opinions and preferences. And I'm actually reminded, I was talking with a woman who wanted to change her diet and just be healthier. And she just loved the feeling of going and getting fast food. And she did this kind of inquiry with herself and came to understand that when her parents were home, they would take them for fast food. And so it was this joyful comfort food. It meant so much about family. And when she realized that she's a physician, she is able to get all kinds of different food, have a private chef, make it ahead of time. She could cook at home. Like, there's so many different options, and that she could actually create that really meaningful, connected time with her children while the whole family is eating really healthy food. So I'm just giving that as an example that so often there's more that motivates us than we've realized. And the thing about compromise that you express so beautifully is that it creates a lose-lose, but with the collaborative attitude, coupled with self-inquiry, curiosity about oneself, and the self-awareness that arises, we can discover that the thing we really want, that we thought we'd get by taking the family to fast food or enrolling the kids in a private school, that actually we can get that thing that we value or the feeling we yearn for in many different outcomes. And so part of what you're saying, I'm hearing as not being detached from a great outcome, but being detached from a specific outcome in order to actually get more of what you both want.
Exactly. It's so cool because I think really the key to collaboration is situating yourself on the same team. I think when you're compromising, there's a lot of scorekeeping. There's a lot of this is my way and this is your way. And, when you see yourself as a team and you collectively pool your resources, then you really can create a life that is so incredible. Like, I look at my life right now and I'm like, there's no way with just my experience and my opinions and, my knowledge that I could have created this life. I had to, I love that we've incorporated so much of my husband and so much of me.
So much that I'm presuming was not in I know enough about you to know that you've created all kinds of experiences and gratification that you just neither of you could have imagined in your childhoods.
Exactly. It's not my way or his way, it's our way. And we've also adjusted to accommodate for our children to get, like that is the beautiful thing about family is you make room for each person to really evolve into the best version of themselves. And the only way to do that is to make room for everyone's person, right? Like you've got to make room for everyone. And so that's the beautiful thing about collaboration is it's not like everybody gives a little. It's like everybody puts in to this collective pot and we create something so magical.
What a great vision. I can't resist. Tell me one more.
Oh, there's so many to choose from. Here's one I like. Divorce is not an option. We take divorce off the table. We don't say the D word. We do not discuss it. It is not an option. Now, I have so many clients probably because of my religious affiliation that really, really struggle with this one because if divorce is not an option, then you're locked in. It's not a choice-based marriage. It's obligation. It's being stuck. And so why am I going to work on the marriage? Why am I going to better myself? Why am I going to, you know, do anything to make myself more pleasing or with a growth mindset? Like, why would I even have a growth mindset? Because, you're locked in, I'm locked in. Like, why do we have to have hard conversations or figure things out? Because you're not going anywhere, I'm not going anywhere. So this is just what we've got. And it's crushing. Like I have a client right now where I'm seeing the husband and the wife refuses to get any help or go to therapy or participate in any way for the growth of the marriage. And why should she? Because he feels like he's locked in and he's also very disgruntled and disillusioned. In 25 years of marriage, she's never apologized. She's never taken accountability for anything. And I'm like, you really need to consider your options. And he's like, I don't have any options. I can't divorce her. And I'm like, well, that's a big problem. You have a big problem on your hands if you are not willing to think about creating a choice-based marriage. And I think the idea of taking divorce is supposed to create some commitment or something like that. But think about, do you feel more committed to somebody you choose every day to be with or someone you're like, I'm stuck, I can't get out of this. So I guess this is where we're at.
So great to hear you speak about this in this way. And I'm actually reminded of a couple that I knew. I didn't know them well, but I heard them speak and they were acquaintances, and they set up their marriage to always be a commitment of one day. Every single morning, they needed to choose anew, do I want to be with you? Now, I think for me personally, that would be kind of intense because that really rips away the security, which is and like emotional safety, which is one of the beautiful elements of marriage. So I'm not a divorce is not an option person at all, but I do appreciate the kind of reliability of the commitment that I have with my husband and he has with me. But that really, really spoke to me and kind of opened how I approach our marriage because I don't know that I want to choose anew each day, but there's something potent about that, and at a minimum, each year to do what my husband and I do is just reflect on the state of the union, so to speak. I don't mean to have the political overtones that has, but, just like, where are we and where do we wanna go, and are we setting ourselves up to be where we wanna be in the future? Because if we're not taking stock individually and together, the risk that divorce is the best option really just become, quite strong.
Yeah. And I've heard variations on that choosing daily as yearly, like every year we renew.
Mhm.
Or like this, like we'll revisit this in 25 years. Like, are we where we want to be in 25 years? And, we can get out of it like it's a contract of 25 years. So I've heard that, like the couple variations on that. And like you said, that's a little bit intense, but at the same idea, the idea is, are we choosing each other, right? Like, are we getting through the hard times? There can still be a lot of commitment. Like, I promise to choose you even in the hard times. But it's not like you get a free pass to do whatever the heck you want. And so do I, because, we can't get out of it. So do whatever you want to do, and I'll do whatever I want to do, and we'll just be stuck here.
Yeah, I find that so interesting because divorce is not an option, sounds like prison, even as you and I are each deeply devoted to sustaining our own personal marriages and the marriages of the couples that we work with. It can look ironic or kind of an oxymoron, but it is not at all, not in its essence.
The last chapter in the book, which I haven't talked about on any other podcast, is
Oh, I'm
that
honored.
happily ever after doesn't exist, right? That's a pipe dream, so lower your expectations. Happily ever after absolutely exists. We do create it, and we have to be intentional.
Where can I find the book? Because it's not quite published yet, is it?
Right. It's not. It publishes in August, so I'm not sure when this will come out, but there is a wait list.
Okay, I'll drop it in August. So even though I, as I'm speaking, can't go order it right away, you, as you're listening, can.
Yes, you'll either order the book or you can get on the wait list at badmarriageadvice.com. And when you do that, you will get a free gift from me, which is 300 date night ideas. I do talk about that in the book, how important it is to continue to date your spouse. I think we both think that that's a priority. And so, yes, you can, no matter when you're listening to this, you can get on the wait list and get that free gift from me. And then you'll know when the book comes out, and all the goodies that come along with that.
Okay, well, I wish your son and his bride the most growth-oriented, beautiful, beautiful marriage, launched with the wonderful ceremony they've already had, and the clear identification of all of this bad marriage advice, which then provides context for such profound good marriage advice. And I'm excited for people to read it.
Here's the cheat code. If you're operating on any belief in your marriage and it dampers or hamps down or discourages communication, you can just be certain that that is bad marriage advice. If you are operating on advice that makes you more open, more loving, more communicative, and intimate, that's good advice.
And we're going to leave it right there. You want to add anything about where people can find you?
If you want to learn more about my podcast, Secrets of Happily Ever After, or how you can work with me, you can just go to my name, monicatanner.com.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.